Ladies and gentlemen, what do we have here? A game of Malifaux is what? And this game is going to be Neverborn versus Guild, my Collodi versus my good friend Cog's Lucius, and we decided to spice things up a bit by playing the strategy, which was a story encounter that we found in Cog's Schemes and Strategies deck. We flipped, what's it called, Escort, and for those of you that don't know, the players are split into attacker and defender. The attacker adds the escort model to its crew, and this model can't activate. It's got defense and willpower 6, 10 wounds, height 2, and I think that's probably it. It also can't be affected by any game conditions, apart from attack actions, and if you're in base-to-base contact with it, you can take a 1 interact action to move its walk 5 inches. For this game, it's being represented by the Black Blood Shaman, and if it is in the defender's table half at the end of the game, the attacker scores 4 points. The defender's victory condition is random, but we flipped it that it was exactly the same, so that if it's in the attacker's table half by the end of the game, the defender scores 4 points. We flipped for it, Cog won, and he decided he wanted to be the attacker, so the Black Blood is Scion of Black Blood even, has been arrested by the guild and is being escorted on his way to jail. I also lost the deployment flip and got made to deploy first. So here we go, I've got a marionette Collodi with Fated, Threads of Fate and Strum the Threads. The Brutal Effigy, another marionette, the Widow Weaver. And this time she's packing the handbag. First time I've ever used it, really excited to see what it does. Then over in the centre we've got a Performer, Lelu and 3 Wicked Dolls. As I've said before, if you're deploying first, then it's a good idea to bunch up in the centre of the table and then you can go to wherever you need to, and it's not easy for your opponent to counter. However, I have a plan, and I needed to do this to pull it off. Basically, if you hadn't already guessed, this crew is themed around poison, and is my aim to build a big wall of puppets and poison the shit out of anything that comes near us. Both myself and my opponent were gearing up for a kind of strategy, schemey based game, and virtually none of the schemes we got, in fact none of the schemes we got required any interacting. So I went for Murder Protege on my opponent's Executioner, because I reckon Collodi can bring it down, and with all the poison I think it will, I think we'll get it. But that left the others, and I went for Line in the Sands. I don't think I've gone for it before. And so basically my crew is split into 2 cells. One is the poison cell, and one is the secure line in the sand and get the fuck across to back where you need to be cell. So the idea is the Widow Weaver is near the marionettes, and she can see this one through this tiny gap I've left, which means they go to movement 6, which means that they can reach the centre line with 2 walks. They are both within Collodi's bubble, which means they can strum the threads to go fast. So I can have 2 counters on the centre line in the first turn. They can discard cards to push Collodi and the Widow Weaver back across over here. The Performer can start luring them back over, and then we've got enough activations to get right back into the centre or to the other side of the board if we need to. Boom! Plan. Seeing that I've deployed like this, and knowing that I'm going to be going after his Executioner and Escort, my opponent has deployed to stop me. So he's got some guild people over here with shooting in the centre, and then most of his other stuff over here. So we have Guild Guard, Guard Sergeant, Ostringer, I fucking hate these things, Lucius, with Legalese, Secret Assets, yeah, that is such a good card, and Surprisingly Loyal. A Beckoner, the, what's it called, the Secretary or whatever it is. It's a proxy, he hadn't glued it together yet. An Executioner, with a lead-lined coat, and a Lawyer, a proxy again. And the Sign of Black Blood is the escort. Turn 1, I think I won the initiative and my opponent went first, but basically the plan goes off, the marionettes move up and drop their scheme markers. I absolutely love these things. Oops, forgot to show my hand, there it is. And as you can see, I'm enacting my plan to push or drag along and then pull people across with the Performer. Going well so far. This is how things look at the end of turn 1. On the guild side, we've got a guild guard that's run off over here to try to counter my scheming marionettes. Most everyone else is pushed back over this way. guard sergeant booting ski markers around, Lucius walking around giving everyone extra activations and stuff, pushing the escort up close to the centre line. He gummed things up a bit by leaving his steward or whatever it is in front of the executioner, which was a mistake that he wasn't very happy with. And this here is a fantastically lucky Wicked Doll. It took the Beckoner and some other shots, I think a sniper shot, and it still didn't die. It's taken 2 wounds and brilliant. And I think a mistake my opponent made was to beckon it closer, because that's just where I want to be. But I think he was trying to bring it in range of more shooting. For my part, I was moving the Wicked Dolls up to try to activate him. Lelou's gone up. The Widow Weaver got beckoned and then walked both her actions to put down a web marker. It's not quite far up enough, but you know, it'll do, just in case they break through eventually. I was planning just to run Collodi his 3 actions with the Widow Weaver's help, but then a guild guard came and sat in the street, and I couldn't help myself. So Collodi strummed his threads, went fast, moved up to here, shot at the guard, triggering my bidding, which made him shoot at the Beckoner, and unfortunately I didn't do anything, but you know, it's always fun to have free shots. And then I didn't get greedy, and I just moved him to safety behind the house. Should have slowed him really, but every time I do his attack I regret not having that my bidding trigger, so when I get it I use it. Whilst I'm pretty happy with my positioning, basically having set my schemes into motion, having switched board sides, and I'm pretty sure Guild aren't fast enough to do the same, I am worried about the position of my performer, as my crew is a bit gimmicky, but she is the model that gives it some real teeth. With the amount of poison I can throw around, this little girl can just delete models, especially when combined with the Widow Weaver's ability to throw out those web markers to decrease people's willpower. For this matchup in particular, Lucius loves dropping scheme markers for those damn snipers, and she can blow them up and give out those lovely double negatives, which just works so well for if she wants to do that siren call for the sip of wine trigger, or Collodi's attacks, or the Widow Weaver's attacks. It's just brilliant. And on top of that, she can interact whilst engaged, which means if it comes down to it, I can get her into contact with the escort model and just push it around, regardless of what my opponent tries to do to deny me it. So I'm seeing her as pretty key, and I'm not liking the fact that this ski marker is here in a nice snipey position to take her out. I did consider using Collodi's last action to move her up a bit more, but I figured I'd risk it. Turn 2, a Soulstone brings my hand into a very healthy condition. I win the initiative, and my Wicked Doll goes, flurries away at the Beckoner. She then beckons this guy, the Executioner, forwards, which I'm really happy with. Gets out of dodge herself, and maybe brilliants the Wicked Doll, or maybe perhaps we forgot to remove that marker, I can't remember. Yeah, I think she beckoned the lawyer up. She must have done that first before moving. Well, I am not going to waste this opportunity, so the Brutal Effigy goes, and he moves up to where you see him, puts Fear Not Sword on Collodi, and therefore everyone. Collodi accomplices, strums the threads to go fast. He's got easy line of sight and range to the Executioner, so I hit him for a slow and idle hands. Then bubble off my armour on everybody and wade this Wicked Doll up into the fray. And my next objective is to kill this guy, the Scribe, because I think he's got some kind of condition removal, and I need to take him down before he can get the Executioner back up and running. So when I get the chance, I charge him with the Wicked Doll, and I've tied up lots of models, and they're all within 2 inches, and I'm really loving it. And it's a struggle, let me tell you. But I do manage to put this thing on its last wound with about 3 poison, which means it will die when it activates thanks to the Wicked Doll. So I'm feeling pretty happy about that. So at the end of the turn, this is how things look. Scheme Runner cell has put down another Scheme Runner, and the other Marionette has run around here. The idea being now we're going to leapfrog across the table, just dropping tons of scheme markers. And the lone Guild Guard he's got over here isn't going to be enough to kill them all. Remove them all. For my opponent's part, he's been manoeuvring with the Guild Sergeant and the scheme markers, and yeah, there's quite a few scheme markers around now. The performer loves it. He's been plinking damage off the Wicked Dolls, and just moving the escort up, and taking out, basically pseudo-paralysing the Executioner was a massive deal. For my part, I struggled to follow things up. It was a bit difficult to get into range, so basically Lelou's just managed to get to here. The performers managed to get to here to, they're both in range to do stuff next turn. This Wicked Doll did try to overthrow the needle, or whatever it's called, onto the Beckoner, but failed, so he just moved up. And with the Executioner's charge lane blocked, the Widow Weaver's feeling brave and has moved up into the garden, so I can start putting her web markers down where I need them, right in the slap bang in the middle of the mosh pit. And basically I was trying to wait till the end of the turn when my opponent's hand was drained to make the Executioner fail a horror duel. With the web marker is only at willpower 4, but yeah, I just cannot ever get this to work. But a nice thing was that one of the guild guards ran in to get involved, and the Executioner's idle hands were a bit treacherous, and they killed him. And I remembered to drop the corpse marker in a little bit. I would have gone for the lawyer, but my opponent cunningly beckoned him used the Ostringer to deliver orders to get him out of there. So turn 3, I'm pretty sure I Soul Stone, and yes, that is a nice hand. My opponent wins initiative, and holy shit! The Guard Sergeant goes and takes down the Wicked Doll that was hiding here, and then accomplices the Executioner, who tears the Wicked Dolls around him apart and heals himself back up pretty much to full. I didn't realise they could heal themselves 5 damage in one turn, in one go. Wow, so yeah, I'm looking a bit threadbare. However, there's quite a few bodies now around the Widow Weaver. That's tempting fate, that is. But let's not get distracted. The goal this turn is to kill the Executioner before he does any more damage, because, yeah, Jesus. So Lelu goes in, he puts himself between the Beckoner and the guy, because I don't want her luring him out and away to safety. Oh, so that's right, he charged the Executioner and pushed himself and moved himself to there. Got some good licks in, put 4 poison or something on the guy, and put him basically onto 4 wounds. And the performer is licking her lips. I discard a card with Lelu to get his pounce. I don't really move anywhere. And to be honest, for discarding a card, it's a bit shit, isn't it? So reading the card, when an enemy model ends a push or move within this model's engagement range that is not part of a walk or charge action, I can take an attack. But a move is pretty much a walk, right? So people can walk around all happy, all around Lelu, and he won't do anything. But if the Beckoner were to beckon the Executioner, it says move the model its walk distance. So does that count as a move and not a walk, because it's not the model taking a tactical walk action, it's being moved? So I don't know, if someone could clear that up, that would be great. The lawyer does him for fees and poison. Oh, and that was because Lucius activated and made him do it. The dirty bureaucrat also kills my performer with his sniper and his guild sergeant shooting across the fence, and yeah. So there pretty much goes my entire poison list, and Collodi is not happy. So from where he's hiding around the corner, he's got range and line of sight to the Executioner, and red jokers him into the grave. That built-in positive for damage is just so powerful. So Murder Protégé secured, I take out the Beckoner, because screw that wench. Oh, and obviously the Brutal Effigy did its accomplishing trick, so it went first, gave Collodi all his healing and nice stuff, and I'm drawing cards, finally remember to draw those cards, and that's really great. I really appreciate those cards. And basically the effigies just run up and engaged the sergeant, so he can't do any more of that horrible shooting. He also happens to be on the centre line, which means if he dies I can finish the job and pretty much guarantee getting a line in the sand. At the end of the turn things look like this. One of my creepy marionette ran back round the corner to protect my scheme marker from the guild guard who moved in to try to take it. This marionette's come out of the house and is going to go get some line in the sand over here. I think the lawyer pushed the escort into my table half, and you may notice we've got a new friend. That's right, the Widow Weaver saw the gift horse and took it in the mouth. With all the bodies around, I actually only needed to use up one of those very useful scrap markers that my Wicked Dolls had dropped. So a 3 corpse marker, 1 scrap marker, Teddy appears next to her. Now I wasn't really sure about his 0 action, so I can gobble you up and push into, I think it's up to 8 inches or something, into base contact with another model. But if you can't make it into base contact, I don't think you can pull it off. And so I'm not sure about this, so I figured I can't push into base contact with this guy because the terrain's in the way. I don't know if that's right, I don't know if walls don't count for that kind of thing, but we played it that I couldn't do that, and so Teddy just ran over here to be engaging and, you know, kind of just holding things up, and he's going to be looking to flurry early next turn when this guild sergeant doesn't have his -2 difficult to wound thing from the lawyer. And I'm not entirely sure the Teddy was a good idea. I could have had 2 Wicked Dolls for it, and they could be doing, you know, well, they'd be 2 different models, and I'd be able to do schemes next turn with them. But how often do you get the chance to make the teddy bear, so I just couldn't not do it. At the time I thought it was a bad move. I'm looking at it now and I'm thinking maybe it wasn't. It is a big swing to have Teddy. And being able to use all those corpse markers instead of the scrap markers was summoning efficient, I feel. So we go into turn 4. I decide not to stone because I want to keep basically I'm thinking this is my summoning turn where I bring back all my Wicked Dolls, so I want to keep the stones around for that. My opponent wins the initiative, and you know, it's not great, but I figured Teddy can probably take it. He's got a lot more wounds than I'm used to, and he's impossible to wound, and Lucius has lost his beat stick, and yeah, so, you know, I'm pretty confident I can take it. Guard Sergeant goes, hits him with his big axe, and does some quite substantial damage. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is an example of how Teddy is a real glass cannon. He might give a negative to damage, and he might never let you cheat against his damage. But at defense 3, it often just doesn't matter. And I'm flipping really well for his defense. I'm flipping like 13s and 11s. And yeah, with all those frickin' rams the guild get, he's just taking it like a little bitch. So Teddy manages to pull through against the frickin' minion. Lucius accomplices, and it happens all over again, and yeah, that is a dead Ted. And the curse of my Care Bear doing absolutely jack shit whenever he appears continues. After a bit of tug of war and back and forth, the Lilu manages to get back here, using his Sakata discard, you know, to get that push to get into base contact, and then pushes the siren over here. The Weaver brings back some Wicked Dolls. Collodi's ended the lawyer's pain, and things are looking good again. And this is how the board looks at the end of turn 4. So the Marionette over here got arrested, but I discarded that card to charge the guard, which I've got a picture of here. And Creepy resists arrest, you know, decently. He damages the guard a bit, but he's now on his last wound. Can he protect the marker? Lucius has ended up over here, and my second Marionette has run across up to here to be on the centre line. I stupidly moved Collodi first, otherwise I could have moved around here and made her drop a scheme marker, as I think in the end I just used his last couple of attacks to make the Wicked Dolls hit and poison the Sergeant to not really much effect. If you're wondering where the Ostringer is, by the way, it's just behind here. Turn 5. Always nice to see the Red Joker in hand with Collodi. Unfortunately, Creepy Marionette succumbed to the police officer, but it was enough, as the guild guard didn't quite have it in him to kill the Marionette and get into base contact and remove the scheme. Mission accomplished. So with the War of Attrition won, I'm out-activating my opponent quite well now. Lucius is forced to use all his activations to run around and stand next to Collodi, although he does use his sniper to attack Lelu and almost kills him. So before something else can put the final nail in Lelu, I move him up and push the escort well into my opponent's table half, whereupon the Ostringer tried to beat the crap out of it to kill it and therefore deny anyone points for the strategy. Again, we really weren't sure about this, but we went with the idea that it's a model in my opponent's crew, which means he can choose to relent with it. It's immune to sacrifice, but we think that's a specific effect which will be worded in the action if that's what the action does. Let me know if you know if that's the right way to play it, but I think it is. In the end, it was close, but the Ostringer wasn't able to finish it off. The Sergeant tried to break away from all the Wicked Dolls, but he couldn't. Finally, Cog fails the last round disengaging strike, and so the escort lives. In return, the Dolls pound on the Sergeant, and they're not doing very much, because I think the lawyer may have made him double hard to wound before he fell. But they're doing 3 or 4 poison per hit, so I actually did get him onto 10 poison by the end of the game. It is not a joke how much poison those Dolls can hand out. They've got a built-in infect trigger, which works with their sewn in poison ability, so they're always doing 2 damage on a hit. 2 poison on a hit, sorry. And they can get crows to make that more, which I was, and there was a second doll around, so yeah, it's just tons of poison. If only I had a performer. If only. I dropped my 4th scheme marker on the centre line and secured line in the sand and moved the man around here to just play with the Lucius. Collodi pushed out of engagement, moved around here, killed the sergeant easily and just kind of twiddled stuff around, I guess. And the Widow Weaver just exhaled terror at Lucius to no effect. The plan was, I think in turn 3 or 4, I'd personal puppeted the brutal effigy before sending him up here. And basically the plan was, if things were dire and my opponent somehow managed to remove my scheme markers, the idea was that the Widow Weaver was going to attack Collodi, who would then, whatever it's called, decoy to kill the effigy and finish the job, dropping a scheme marker. But it didn't come to that, and we flipped for the 6th turn, but it didn't happen, and the game ends there. Really fun game, pretty damn complicated though with all the AP these masters can throw around. But we all know Collodi is king when it comes to board manipulation. The final scores, I scored 4 points for the escort strategy, 3 points for line in the sand, and 3 points for murder protege. The strategy is pretty geared towards landslide victory, and my opponent didn't score for bodyguard or take prisoner. So unless any of you eagle-eyed sons of guns can spot a mistake, I think this is my first 10-0 victory. Hooray for me! Obviously this is only my opponent's 2nd game with Lucius, and he is one of the hardest masters I think to start out with, so yeah. But Lucius hits surprisingly hard. With the lawyer's hard to wound buffs and Lucius's extra actions, he turned that sergeant from a 6 soulstone model into something like a 12 soulstone killer. It was a bit scary. In terms of my crew, obviously I'm pretty happy with how it did. Disappointed I didn't really get the poison stuff working, and I'll be interested to test it out against someone with a bit more experience with their crew. One last thing to say is I can't stop playing Collodi as a damage master. His attacks are just so good. Damaging something, healing myself, drawing a card and taking away my opponent's actions. It is just so much better than putting a point of armour on some stuff, or telling one of my crappy minions to take an attack. In most circumstances. I think if I do want to start playing the Fated list properly, I'm going to need some Illuminated and Stitched together. You've got to have models that's worth giving his AP to. Anyway, that's the game and my thoughts. I've probably rambled on quite a bit too long, and so I'll just bid you to take care.